Look, I know that people will say some really foolish things when their beliefs are challenged, but this one that I hear all the time from atheists honestly boggles the mind. I had a skeptic respond to one of my videos by claiming that the only things that count as evidence are things that are quantifiable, verifiable, and repeatable. Because, he claims, none of the evidence for God meets that standard, essentially Christians aren't offering any evidence for God. First off, some of the evidence cited for God does meet his definition, but it's more like establishing individual puzzle pieces that we then use to make an inference to the best explanation. We don't conduct experiments to prove the existence of God like we would try to prove some scientific hypothesis. I'll explain why in a moment. But leaving that aside, I'll give you verifiable. But does something need to be quantifiable and repeatable to be evidence for the existence of God? No. Quantifiable and repeatable is the type of language we use when we're talking about the evidence we get from scientific experimentation. Scientific experiments are designed to test phenomena whose actions are determined by the laws of nature. You input certain stimuli, and because of the regularity of the laws, you can predict a certain outcome. But the actions of an intelligent agent are not determined by the laws of nature. Free will, by definition, means an agent's actions are not quantifiable or repeatable. Even when exposed to the same stimuli, I have the freedom to make one choice one day and the opposite choice the next. If you want to know if a defendant stole someone's wallet, for example, you'll look to things like eyewitness testimony, video surveillance, or whether they got caught with the victim's credit cards. These are all evidence that the defendant committed the crime, but they aren't quantifiable or repeatable because they are unique, describing a unique, isolated event that wasn't determined by natural law. I guarantee that every atheist recognizes this type of evidence in every other circumstance in life. It's only when it comes to the God question that they try to say, that's not evidence. Essentially what they're doing is trying to limit what kinds of evidence Christians can produce in order to support our case. And they're conveniently trying to limit us to only the type of evidence that can never show the actions of an intelligent agent in the first place. That's called stacking the deck. Scientific experiments have nothing to do with the actions of a free agent. Atheists are saying, no, Christian, if you want to prove God exists, you can't use that type of evidence. I mean, even though I accept that type of evidence for every other question involving free intelligent agents, you can only use the type of evidence I say you can use. Sorry, but no. You don't get to decide that. Evidence is any fact that makes a conclusion either more or less likely to be true. The fact that you're not comfortable with where a particular type of evidence might lead isn't a rational reason for ignoring it.